put our extracurricular activities at the church on hold for now, just because we're just following the guidelines, the local guidelines given to us,
which are created from the state guidelines, which are created from the CDC guidelines, which
the knee bones
changes, which changes
bones connected to the hip
different times. So
yeah, I mean, and it's hard for everybody. Information changes so rapidly, but so anything where it requires us to be in close contact for a prolonged period of time, we've put that on hold. We were going to be doing a fishing trip with the youth, but they closed all the beaches, so we're going to hold off on that. We're still having service, but we are live streaming it, and we've recommended to the majority of our congregation to
watch it on the live stream. And when we were at service, we're all spaced out, and stayed apart. So we're doing all the right things, But
we're
still able to gather together and have that fellowship, which is important to have. So.
Yeah, it is. So, but we're just taking it each week at a time, making sure we're doing the right things, or a day at a time. So yeah. Now I know that school looks a lot different for the young people of the country.
Yeah.
Which it was funny when I started hearing about it, and I was like, oh yeah, the kids will stay home. And I just didn't think about it being a big deal because all three of us were homeschooled.
#homeschool.
So I got 1 year of kindergarten at a private school, but otherwise I was homeschooled.
I had to go to college. Otherwise,
I went to college.
Which
I'm
just
saying
that's like one of the homeschooling jokes is that it was not in our basement; it was an actual establishment.
Yeah,
I don't understand why people joke about homeschoolers going to college in a basement.
I don't know if it's a mainstream joke. I just saw it on a TV show one time. It made a joke about homeschoolers who got invited to prom, and he's like, "Well, he's going to invite her to his prom," and she invited him to her prom first. So he's like, "Well, we'll go to your prom," and it was downstairs because she was homeschooled, and it was just the two of them and the mom as the chaperone.
Well, it's just
it was kind of odd.
It is a little funny that now all the people that made fun of homeschoolers do have to kind of eat their words for a little bit here, but
they don't. Yeah, although
that was eating noises, by the way, in case anyone was wondering.
It's very odd sounding, but it was interesting. I did see one thing about. People even talk about how it's different for homeschoolers because there's even usually the camaraderie meeting up of going to co-ops or things like that where they get together and socialize with each other as well, and that's even down from them. So it's even secluded for homeschoolers. They're not excluded from the distancing.
So in case there's someone listening who doesn't know what a co-op is, what is a co-op? How would you describe it?
It's basically where it's usually a homeschool group, and they will have classes where, and usually it's classes where you would benefit from having several people in the class that you can't really. So they don't usually do math classes or things like that.
Well, it depends on the group.
Well, if it's a challenging, math,
sometimes they
like
will
a
teach
higher level math.
Right, they may have classes that it's hard for the parent to teach.
Yeah.
On their own, that they may not have the skill level, and rather than having the parent just depend on the curriculum, they can have them go with this co-op, and they have a facilitator, and they'll do the teaching.
Did had a speech class, or science
one of my
classes.
favorites.
Marine biology, they got I think one of the people was connected with the 4-H club.
Yeah,
and so they brought in stuff for us to dissect.
Yeah.
Microscopes to look at.
Equipment that you don't necessarily have at home,
Yeah.
Because people choose to homeschool for a variety of different reasons, and so because some people go, well, if you're going to do that, why don't you just go to school? Well, it's still different. It's a different atmosphere.
One thing that was nice
school
is sometimes you could choose what classes your kids were a part of. So you,
Right.
and you didn't even have to come certain days. You know, if you just
Right. It's only a couple.
Yeah.
It's not the
You
whole
know.
week. It's not the 5 days a week. It's like a couple of hours in the morning, a couple of days a week, and different ones do it different.
and if you,
you
want
know.
this class, you know, you can
And that's one of, a lot of
Mhm.
times people
take it and
wonder like how do homeschoolers socialize? That's one of the ways, they
One
they
of the
get
ways.
together with homeschool groups
Mm-hmm.
and to meet there. So I mean, people, good homeschool families, they find creative ways to
Right.
socialize their kids.
Yeah, because even like because Nathan and I went to the one homeschool group during our high school years, and they even had a social group for high schoolers that were homeschool high schoolers. So that way, not only were they having classes together, they actually had social events to actually have. So
interact.
I guess it's a class in and of itself. It's learning social skills, social skills class.
But
Like,
not like those kinds where you like have to dress up in suits and.
it's
Yeah.
like a
And,
etiquette
you know.
or
Although
What's
they
it
actually,
called?
I believe one time they did have like a dance school night, or they had like a dance instructor
one night. Yeah,
and had like a dance class. That was fun. That was, I think, free for anyone
Anyone.
to come though. Wasn't
Yeah, that was for
necessarily.
Yeah.
anybody because I went to that.
Yeah. That was really fun.
It was
though.
So it was
so
all
long
the
ago though.
families.
I kind of need to do one again because I don't remember most of what I learned, except for I remember doing
case
the
you need
polka,
to- Well,
and
never
that
mind.
was hard
won't
because
say
I was
that.
spinning and walking around the edge of the room. You're dancing with someone and you're spinning
Yeah, I
and
did not.
walking around it was hard.
I didn't like the polka, but
The Virginia reel is fun,
Ooh.
except when you have way too many people. And I think one time I went to a dance where I think it was a dance. It wasn't the class. The class, they divided us into like pairs of 4. So there was only 4 like groups going down. But one time I think we did the Virginia reel and there was like a ton of people and it took forever. You're like,
all
okay.
I remember are sweaty
Mm.
palms, which then leads me
From
to
the night or from the Virginia reel?
Well, I don't remember.
Dancing
Just
in
enough.
general.
Just
I
the
don't know,
night in
just
general.
dancing in general. I'm always like, oh, please don't have sweaty hands.
And
Which
it
then
makes me
leads
subconscious
me
about having
to
my own
say-
sweaty hands.
That's not a good social distancing.
I was trying to figure out what
idea.
social
Yeah, I know.
distancing dancing would look like. You'd be 6 feet apart, holding yourself in a dance position. And,
Well, you
know,
could do line dances, any type of line
Keep
dance.
it- Yeah, keep it
Cupid
shuffle.
shuffle, electric slide,
everyone spread your arms out as
boot
far as
scoot and
possible.
boogie. Those-
If you're within
Square
that bubble
dancing,
space,
probably
move
not.
further out.
Yeah. But in any case, we thought since we are all homeschool graduates
We were
that
homeschooled before it was cool.
we could offer some
tips.
suggestions for those of you that suddenly find yourself homeschooling your children.
Because even homeschool co-op does not really work right now.
No.
So
No.
that fun to talk about, not really practical for the time being if you're in this situation where you're not
Yeah,
usually
no.
a homeschooler and
So-
you're stuck.
So common myth is that for homeschooling is that they think that you sleep in and do your homework in your pajamas. And I want to tell you that myth is true.
Confirmed.
Confirmed.
Completely true.
So
Mhm.
it depends on your family, though.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
And it depends on your personality.
I would
I'm
usually
one of
sleep
those
until
ones.
noon.
There's certain
for a while.
tasks that I have to like kind of get up and get ready to be in the mind frame to do it. If I'm like lounging around in my pajamas, I can't do it. But I was one I could do my schoolwork in my pajamas and I could get it done. So it's something that's really depends on your kid's personality. And if your kids are used to going to school, it may be good to make them just get dressed and go
Yeah.
through that routine.
Don't get them out of the habit because they made
Because it may not work for them. You
Right.
know, they may find themselves like, oh, I'm in my pajamas. I can do what I want. There's some people that I've seen on Facebook that they've kind of created a little schedule, like a generic schedule. It's not like strict, but it's enough structure to kind of help their kids with that. Because that weird, and again, every family's different, but we were ones that we kind of could still flow without having strict structure. That's kind of hard to say. strict structure.
I mean, personally, I would have liked maybe more structure, but obviously
I
could do
enjoyed
without
sleeping
it.
in, but
yeah.
it probably was not the best in the long run, I guess, but not a bad thing,
Yeah.
you know.
So, but there's things. So I know some schools are providing ways to learn at home. Some of them are even going as far as providing some laptops for those who don't have it, so they have some online learning. And there's a lot of resources out there. I was trying to think. I think Scholastic was offering some like online things. I don't know. There's a couple different websites
I'm not
that
sure.
are offering some online resources for things, for kids to learn things.
That's really
So
cool.
yeah, so just some
Cool.
resources out there. So I mean, you could probably do a quick Google and you could find some things online, easy resources if your school hasn't already provided it.
Well, one of the myths about homeschooling, and this one that is false, is that, you have to teach everything yourself. And people are like, well,
Right.
Teachers, they get, degrees to teach kids. How exactly can you teach them, things that you don't know? And the answer is you learn to find curriculums
The answer
that
is you
actually
don't.
that are actually able to teach them.
Mhm.
And that does mean that your kids eventually learn the skill to read things, and they don't have a teacher,
Sort
so
of have
they
to
have
teach
to
themselves or have some type of initiative
yeah,
to go for it.
which is not a bad thing.
Right.
As you go through life, you realize the ability to do things for yourself is not a bad skill to have. But
Not that you don't learn that in public school, but it's definitely, if you don't have the teaching ability,
yeah,
sometimes that they have to do that.
but it's easier if you find curriculums. And so back to online. Online is a great place where you can find resources.
Yeah. Now, one thing too, you learn to find some creative ways to incorporate something or kind of count it as school. So
Right.
Different states have different laws regarding homeschooling. Some of them, have testing that you have to do each year. Some of them you just have to present a portfolio.
Sometimes they'll give you options.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of them they'll have hour requirements. That was the worst one in Missouri. You had to have 1,000 hours.
It sounds like it's
School.
good. It's really not.
It's really challenging.
You have to keep track of like all of your hours,
Mhm.
and at the end of the year, you have to make sure that you kept track of all your hours properly.
Right. And they didn't
it's
always
kind of a mess.
They didn't always check that I recall, but we always
No,
kept
we always kept
track
track
because
of
you didn't
them.
know. They could say, okay, we're going to check in, make sure you're doing your
Yeah.
hours. We haven't been keeping track. Oh, well, that's a problem.
Yeah. Well, the problem was too is we had come from Oklahoma where you have to do 180 days. And
That's a little bit easier to keep
so
track of than hours.
It's easier to keep track of it than hours. But then also, like, if you had, a field trip to the zoo or whatever, and maybe you spent like 6 hours at the zoo, well, that was your day,
Right.
Or like there were some subjects that I was faster at than others. So if you were fast at your schoolwork and you got it all done in 5 hours, well, that was your day of school. Well, that doesn't work out for 1,000 hours.
Right.
So then you began to like
Right.
find things that would help you learn stuff and fill hours. So some things that we did things like home economics, which actually was really good because I learned how to cook things and I learned, some different skills that you actually use in real life. And so that's something that you could kind of do.
Did you learn how to file taxes?
Did I? No, I think that was on the job.
I'm trying to remember
experience.
with home ec. I feel like I kind of remember it happening, but I don't know if I learned like table etiquette, maybe, or I'm trying to remember what I learned with home ec. Or
But you
I don't know if I learned it. Maybe I was younger. I didn't do home ec. But
Yeah, but you can do something like that where you can take time to like learn how to do some cooking. Since you'll be at home.
Peanut butter and jelly on toast. Boom.
Or something even better.
Or even just learning how to do cleaning.
Thanks.
You know,
Thanks a
you
lot.
can have them. You can truly have your kids clean because
Yeah.
it's a needed skill
It
in
is.
life. You'd
You
be
can't,
surprised
if you don't know how to
many-
clean, you're going
How
to,
many grown-ups don't know how to clean stuff?
you have two
Or how many
choices. You
people
have a
don't
know
dirty
how to
wash
house or
their
you have to
hands.
spend money.
Some people don't even know how to wash their hands properly.
A lot of them do now, though.
Yeah, a lot they learned. But those are things. One thing that I liked growing up is when we would do unit studies. And so what that would be is it would be like a topic. My favorite one was doing the solar system. And so you just take time to just focus your schoolwork around the solar system. Now we had like some basic like math and English curriculum that kind of we just followed too, but you can also still do things related to that. So, you know, obviously there's the science side of studying the solar system, but then, you know, you can do music and find songs about the planets, or
Sun's a
you
hot
can
star. Mercury's hot too.
copyright.
Oh.
No, I don't know.
I only did a.
I thought of the Blue's Clues
thing
too. Saturn's got those icy rings, right?
But that's the thing
Pluto's
too.
really small and not considered a planet anymore.
But that's
not how
something
that goes.
that's something you can do where then you can
Edited it.
find some videos, you know, related to the solar system.
Multiply with power.
And then, you know, so that's something that's entertaining where they can watch something. So they think
Right.
that, oh, I'm getting to watch a movie, but it's something that's helping them learn. And then you can say, okay, well now, you know, write about your favorite planet and why that's your favorite planet, or write about your favorite piece of the solar system. So then
because it's the smallest planet.
now you have, you know, English there.
Yeah.
You know, you
Right.
incorporated writing.
And it helps them to retain some of the information because they can learn all this stuff about the planets, and it goes, you know, flies out of orbit.
for math, you can do
but
you
if
can
they
do
have
the
to write it-
phases of the moon for math. It can help you with fractions.
Oh, I
That
was trying to figure out where you're going with that.
Quarter
Like,
sounds interesting.
Yeah.
fractions were not.
So there's just
ironically,
creative ways.
fractions were not good for me. They thought it was gonna be bad when I did a chemistry class because I didn't understand like fractions as well, because you need fractions for chemistry for some weird reason. When they started putting like names and like elements in place of the numbers, which they thought would make it more complicated, it actually made it easier for me to understand fractions. I have no idea why. It sounds like inverted.
I've heard
But-
that 10 out of 9 people are bad at fractions.
Could be. You at least have a 50-60 chance of being in that number.
Or a 40-40 chance.
Sorry, not to confuse those who are actually needing help with
Sorry.
math right now, but
Yeah, hopefully that didn't
Only a
confuse
fraction of the
everyone.
audience will get those jokes.
yeah. I was trying
Anyway.
But
I was
anyway,
trying
so
to
but
add to
that's
that,
something,
but
you know, you could just
they're multiplying.
pick a topic to learn about and focus on, and then just pull things that are related to that. And the thing that's a good idea is to find something that, you know, your child is interested in, because that's
Right.
going to help encourage their participation. So if they are really into cars,
boom,
then
boom.
you can start to take time to look at like the science of how cars work
Like the physics
and-
of it or whatever.
and the history of cars. So then, you know, who
Go into history.
invented the
Right.
first car. So
and
you
you can use it even as like a segue of other things of that era if you wanted
Mm-hmm.
to, you know. But sorry, I think I interrupted your train of thought. But
oh no, I'm just saying that, you know, that picking something that they're interested in is more likely to get them to participate in it and be
Mhm.
excited about it. And that's the advantage of homeschooling, you know, is you kind of can, you know, tailor it to what they want to learn. And I mean, there's still some things that you have to do that they're not going to like, you know,
some
but if
kids
you,
don't. Some kids love math. Some kids hate math. they still need to have to learn it. you
Yeah.
know? So
But then, then you can go from this standpoint of, well, if you will, if you get your math, let's say they don't like math, you get your math done, then we can focus on this other thing that's fun,
reading,
because that was
or
something
whatever,
for me. Like I
arts.
loved reading,
I
Mhm.
loved reading too.
and so
I
you had to, get me to do the hard stuff and get that out of the way, and then I could do the reading.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like a reward system.
Kind of like that series that we had. It was like a historical fiction series.
Yes.
Yes.
That was really fun.
American
We still have it.
Adventures.
I like if I get a lot of good time to read, I probably will try to find that tub and pull out that series and read it again. I will skip the flu epidemic book probably.
Too sad.
Hashtag relevant.
But they had smallpox and the flu and cholera on that series. I might skip those books if I go through it, just because.
Cholera I'd be really interested in, because I found out more things about cholera later in life, just because I liked history, and I found a thing about the history of cholera, sort of.
So there's a creative way
That
you
would be
can do it.
interesting, but
Is if your kid likes to read, maybe you can, but they don't necessarily like history as much. Maybe they would be interested in historical fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what that series was historical fiction of America. And, so maybe they like reading, or maybe they like history and they don't like reading as much, but maybe that'll help them with it.
And, sometimes, too, I remember when we were doing languages, something we would do would be watch a movie, but watch it in the if we were learning Spanish, watch it in Spanish.
See, I thought that'd be a good idea to do. I just didn't realize that we actually did that when we were younger.
I did it. Maybe you guys
we did that in high school.
Yeah.
It was a weird movie.
Yeah, I didn't
and
like
I didn't
the
really care about
movie.
it, so it didn't
Well, that
really
was
do
at the
anything.
co-op.
But
That wasn't.
Right. That was at the co-op. We did
No,
it.
I remember.
I didn't like it in English, so I didn't want to watch it in Spanish either.
Yeah.
But
I remember
one of
watching.
them we did watch in Spanish that I thought was actually or did we only do the one? Maybe I'm mixing up two different, because
I feel like
it was like the last day of co-op, and
Spanish.
instead of actually doing something like specific, we actually like watched a movie like for the end of the semester or end of the year, and like there was another class that we watched like half of a movie that it might be confusing one of them with.
I
But
remember watching
Sorry.
like Lady and the Tramp in Spanish.
Yes, we did do that.
Yeah. So, because
Weird
if
Lady.
you have DVDs, a lot of them have the option of watching them
right.
in Spanish. I don't know on some of the other features. Like I would think, like if you have Disney Plus or Netflix, you probably could find some of
Probably
those
I
kids
just
would
movies
think
change
they
the
do
language
that.
on it,
in
and
Spanish.
yeah,
And so it's and
it's
then put on English subtitles.
Yeah.
Or if they know the movie well, if they've watched it a billion times, they don't even need the English subtitles, and then they
They'll
can
be
learn
like,
it.
oh,
right, because that's even
This is
how
what this
our
sounds like.
Spanish teacher at the co-op, she talked about how her dad actually learned English was because she actually was she was a Latino. There's a difference between the two, but which we learned there. But and her dad had to learn English coming to America, and how he did it was watching TV in English, and it worked for him.
and reading the newspaper
And
too. I think.
yeah, I think reading
Yeah.
as well, so that it actually would prove effective for him to learn the English language. So that I'm sure would work in reverse as well.
Yeah. And then, any type of craft project that you do, it's art class.
Right. Because
Yeah.
it also helps with that. You have to remember there's different types of learners. There's like audio learners, visual learners, kinesthetic learners. Are those
Those are the main
the main
three.
ones? So it's like the people who learn best through hearing things, audio learner. Those who learn things best through seeing things, the visual learner. And then people who learn best through actions are the kinesthetic learners. They have some type of
Or
movement.
doing things.
Putting
Doing
it into
things.
action in the sense.
Yeah.
So like, songs that, you have to move with it are good for more projects. Like you're saying, like
Mhm.
arts and crafts, like building things out of Play-Doh,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because then that's one thing too. If you start to find that you're like, why is my kid not doing this stuff? Maybe they just kind of need a little
A
different,
new way to learn.
a different way to
Right.
learn it. because it's, it's different, having your kid at home, being a parent, and then when you're going to be the teacher, and you're
Right.
actually you may learn some things about your kid that you didn't realize.
Parent-teacher conference becomes interesting.
If they won't, yeah, if they aren't sitting still, and doing something, and they keep getting distracted, they may be like a kinesthetic learner, which just means they actually just need to do some type of movement. So if you're trying to get them to do math, have them, tap out with their pencil the different numbers or something, or,
Right.
Just different things to get them moving,
Or do it with their
or
hand.
jump up
count.
and down for the
Yeah.
count,
Yeah, count,
just get 'em
2
moving.
plus 2. Okay, jump up 2 times, and then that's 2, and then jump up 2 more times. How many
Yeah.
times do you do? 4, So then they can connect the number with the movement, and they learn better that way.
Yeah. So there's different things you can do, and you can, like I say, you can get really creative with it.
Mhm.
It sounds scary, but it's
It's not as scary as it
not
sounds.
as scary as
No.
it sounds. I
My
think
mom
sometimes
survived
I think the biggest
so did
thing
we.
too.
We're all
after
here.
20 something years of doing it, so it can
Yeah.
be done.
Well, and I think another myth is people who homeschool their kids ruin their lives, and so
Right.
someone sitting here with a bachelor's degree, homeschooling did not ruin my life.
Associate.
Some years, no
life
degree.
has not,
Some college.
my
some college, no degree.
my life has not been ruined.
So, this one, semester of homeschooling, it's not gonna ruin them.
Right.
They're, and it's
Because
a good
guess what? Everyone
experience.
else is going to be homeschooling their kids right now during this time too anyway. So,
And
what
I have to say too, in college, you have to do a lot of self-teaching. You do go to class, but you have a lot of self-responsibility. And so homeschooling, we had that as well. Where,
So bringing it back
had some
around,
self-learning.
it is a good skill to have.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, there would be things where, we'd have like our math lesson book and be like, okay, go do your math lesson. And then if you have questions and you're not understanding it, you can come ask me. But so a lot of it, we would kind of read the lesson and kind of teach ourselves. And for some things, they would teach us more. But
Yeah.
so that's the beauty of homeschooling, is that you actually can develop that skill with your kids of kind of having them learn something themselves, like say, hey, here's this project, go see if you can kind of figure it out on your own, and kind of give it to them, let them kind of struggle with it a little bit,
Because it's
and then that's going to help them later
in
to where
the workplace.
and
you
do
know.
problem solving.
Right, when they have a problem, whether it's a specific problem that they're trying to solve at work or in a college class or something, or maybe because they've gone through it, some type of problem arises at work that's not part of their official task, but something arises at work, and because they've been trained to have to kind of figure it out, it helps them in that moment to be able to think and solve.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's lots of creative things you can do. For
So
sure.
I have to ask, your number one homeschooling tip. Just really quick. Do you have a number one?
homeschooling tip?
Very intense and
Ugh.
vague.
I guess I could start with mine.
It's a good idea.
So mine would be to find resources to help you teach your kid. You don't have to know everything yourself. The internet is a wide place filled with tons and tons of resources. Use that to help you teach your kids.
Yeah. So to sum it up, don't be too proud to ask for help, right?
That too.
Let's see. If you have
Mine would be to have fun.
Good tip.
very good rule.
Well, because if you think about your own teachers, the ones that were really enthusiastic about what they were teaching, those are the ones that leave a lasting impression. I think of a professor I had in college who was she taught speech, and she loved it. She taught 6 classes, like the same level class, but she had like 6 different groups she was teaching.
And she loved every minute of it.
She did. And I mean, she was strict with her teaching, but she was passionate about it. And so, you know, when you're kind of working through stuff with your kids, also find something that they can get excited about, but also find something that you'll get excited about teaching them. Because they'll pull that from you. Because I was always like, I'm not interested in speech. I'm just doing this because it's a requirement. But I actually found myself getting into it because she was so into it. And
sure.
I mean, any classes that I've had, you know, I think about where the teacher was a lot more excited about it, then I was like, oh, okay, yeah, let me get excited about this too. This is interesting. So
the excitement rubs off.
Yeah. So, you know, if you can find something that you're passionate about just to share with your kid, it's cool, because then it's also a bonding moment. It's something that you can share with them. And then it's something that you'll be excited about, and that'll make them excited. And then it's going to seem like you're just having fun together as a family instead of actually.
But you're also learning.
But
instead of doing school, but you are doing school.
Yeah.
So have fun.
I'd say it's very similar. I would say probably, you know, be creative. Don't limit yourself to a certain box. I mean, yeah, there are certain things that they have to learn, whether they, you know, like them or not. But there are creative ways that you can do things, and we kind of went over that. You know, it's kind of our tips and stuff here throughout it. But you know, just to get, you know, creative, don't limit yourself to got to be so strict to do this. You know, homework sheets and things like that. There are other ways to learn. Like we talked about the different types of learners, the audio, visual, and kinesthetic. You know, there's different ways that you can teach them. Find things that get them moving, you know, and find things that get them listening and or, you know, reading or whatever it is. Different creative things that you can do, whatever it is that they like and enjoy. You know, don't limit yourself to worksheets, because there's only so much of that they can, you know, that any person, no matter what your style of learning, I would say probably, or age, there's only so much of sitting down with a worksheet and filling out answers that you're going to do before you get bored. You know, be creative, find something, whether it's, you know, a video that teaches it, or it's a type of craft or something like that, or whatever it is, just to get, you know, creative with what you're doing. Don't box yourself in.
And I will say, this is not, I mean, I've already said my tip, but just something, a thought that I had is there are going to be some days where school is just not going to get done. Like just there's things, especially if you know, if you're working from home and you're trying to balance out your work
and your kids home all the time.
And it's just a day where you need to be like, you know what, just go play on your iPad, you know, just go, you know, go
have fun,
go play Minecraft. That's okay. Like, don't worry, like, oh, they have to do this amount of school every day, you know, you know, understand, especially in this time frame, you know, there's a lot of emotion and there's a lot of stuff going on. So don't feel like you're a bad parent because you're like, you know what, today we did 0 schoolwork, because it just happens. So then sometimes that's when on Saturday you go, okay, well, today we're going to do something that's fun, but it's learning still, you know. So there's going to be some days where you're really productive and you're like, yeah, I'm rocking this. And then there's some days where it's like, try again tomorrow, and that's okay.
Not rocking this as much today.
Yeah, you know, and sometimes it's just better. It's like, you know what, we're just gonna skip this for the day and do something else. So, you know, don't be hard on yourself. You know.
And the nice thing is too is with homeschooling, you can juggle topics. You don't have to do the same topics every day in the same order.
Right.
You can switch it up. You know.
Yeah. Exactly.
Definitely.
So, well, hopefully we've given
other tips?
some little tidbits.
Well, I would say, you know, amidst this is good for homeschooling, for anything else, just to, you know, to tie into it, the spiritual thing of just to put your trust in the Lord. You know, God is, you know, He's wisdom. He has wisdom. He created the world by speaking it into existence. You know, I'm sure He can help you if you ask Him to figure out how to do this. You know, you're not in this alone. This situation, whether you're homeschooling or whatever it is you're going through with this whole situation right now, you're not alone, and God knows how to help you through it. Don't be afraid to ask Him for help either. There's you know, tip for you.
Yep.
Good tip. All right. Well, I guess we should close in prayer.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Father, I come to you in Jesus' name. And Father, I pray for everyone who is listening, Father, and especially those who have kids. Father, Lord, during this time, I ask that you would keep them safe and help them through, Lord, especially if they're at home and doing these things, Lord. And for those who have kids, Lord, I ask that you would give them wisdom of how to homeschool their kids, Father, and to teach their kids during this time, Father, and help them to not just teach them school, but teach them about you, Father. And I ask that you would give them peace, Father, that passes all understanding, and that it would keep them, Father, and help them to have a good week and to be safe, Father. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Man. All right.
All right. Well,
That's right. Bible class. Don't forget about Bible
Yes.
class.
yeah,
Absolutely.
Bible class,
Can count as history.
There you go.
because Jesus is a historical figure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fun fact, I guess, even secular scholars agree that Jesus is a historical figure. It's whether or not he did miracles that they kind of start to disagree a bit with Christian scholars. But
Although even that,
he is a historical figure, so
Yeah.
it can be history.
Even more than that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and podcast related things, if you want to send us any questions, you don't forget, you can always do that. You can always send us an email at 3pks@ibound.org. That's the number 3 rather than the word 3. You can send us questions, comments, fun things, homeschooling tips.
Your own homeschooling tips.
There you go. Anything you want to send us, it's cool. Well, anything, but comments, questions, fun stuff.
Yeah. Don't send us hate mail.
Yeah. Criticism helps build you as a person, but I mean, just
I don't want any hate mail. I'm just gonna nip that in the bud. Don't send us hate mail. We don't want it.
It's true. It's true.
There's a difference between constructive criticism and hate mail.
Constructive versus
Suggestions for
deconstructive
improvement,
criticism.
absolutely. I'm open to that.
But
mail?
deconstructive criticism.
No, boo. I don't want it.
On the plate we have today a deconstructed criticism. No. Okay. Anyway,
Deconstructive criticism.
and then
Sorry,
of course,
I interrupted.
obviously, that's totally cool. So the email 3pks@ibound.org, and then of course iTunes.
That's the number 3.
Yes. iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, TuneIn, iHeartRadio. Platforms that you can listen to it from or share with. So
Did you mention Spotify?
I think so. We did now.
I'm not
We
an
did now.
auditory learner, so I don't know.
That's true. I don't remember what type of learner I am. I think I'm visual.
I'm
But
like
anyway.
all of the learning.
You're more
Is-
auditory and kinetic.
Kinesthetic.
Kinesthetic.
I just
not
like
kinetic.
learning and can learn
Yes.
anyway.
He's one of the people that does like math.
But audio,
Like he
That's
watches
probably my
math
thing.
videos for fun.
We're being serious. He does.
We're just jealous because we wish we liked
We're
math
not-
that much.
It's not
math
a bad
is
thing.
fun. It's not just about throwing letters around.
You have to mix the alphabet in with the numbers, and
See,
and
that's
then
where
they
they
throw in
ruined.
shapes.
That's where they. No, shapes was cool. I was cool with shapes because here. So geometry, I was digging geometry
See,
because
geometry
I'm
was
visual.
not my strong
okay.
point.
See, you're not visual.
There you go.
If you were a visual
Okay.
learner, you would like geometry because I'm like, there we go. You took math and you put a picture with it. I get it now. But when they
There
started
you
doing
go.
the
Okay.
letters and stuff, I was like, rude. Why did
See,
you do this?
geometry, then you have to like start proving stuff. And you have to go through like these lists of
And
proofs
see, that's what
that
I
you've
like. I
already
like
proved.
logic.
It was so annoying and so much work. And it was even worse to like grade.
I liked it because it was like the deductive
For my
reasoning.
dad who graded it. It was bad because just tons and tons of silly proofs to prove things. Anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's our little post.
I liked it because I was like, because what we did is I did algebra 1 and then geometry and then algebra 2. So it was like this nice break in between algebra 1 and 2. And I was like,
Okay, I see.
Yeah. Now graphs I can speak.
Grabs.
Graphs are
Mhm.
are fine. Where they put like geometry with a graph.
Mhm.
That's fine. That's okay. Because numbers, but proving things, not so much. Anyway,
So anyway, we wrapped up and then we wound back up again. But no problem. No problem. All right, we will see you all next time.